Well, thank you so much, Hunter. I am super excited and welcome everyone to this Power to Fly amazing, amazing conversation. Again, my name is Quinn Conyers. I have the honor, the privilege, and the pleasure to have a conversation because I don't believe it's gonna be an interview. I believe if you don't already have your pen and pad ready, get ready because I know that everything that's about to fall out of her mouth, I don't want you to miss a thing. Now, some of you might already be connected and familiar with Lorraine K. Lee. And some of you are about to meet this amazing woman and really, really get your life, your business, and more importantly, your mindset shifted and transformed. And we're really talking about empower her, advancing women in the workplace be in 2025 and beyond. And we're really going to talk about how you listening right now from being a corporate powerhouse to a solopreneur superstar. But more importantly, how do you do that? You do that by mastering the art of building your brand. So Lorraine and I are going to have a conversation. And for those of you who not familiar with her, get ready because she's going to show you how to take the leap from corporate life to creating your own entrepreneurial empire. Lorraine is a global keynote speaker. She is the author of Unforgettable Presence for a dynamic fireside chat that we're going to have. But more importantly, she has not one, not two, not three, not five, but 10 years of experience leading editorial teams at top-notch tech companies like LinkedIn and Prezi. But more importantly, she has transformed her expertise into a thriving personal brand that has global brands like Zoom, Cisco, and Amazon. And guess what, Power to Fly? We have Lorraine right here, right now. Lorraine, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, what an intro. I'm so excited to be chatting with you today.
Yes, and we are going to jump right in because there are so many women. But before we get started, happy Women's History Month because it's still March.
Yes, let's keep celebrating.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump right on in because there are so many things that you have done well, and you really made a successful transition from, leading teams in major tech companies to building your own brand. Can you talk to us about what was the biggest surprise or aha moment for you for transforming or shifting from corporate to entrepreneurship?
I think one thing that I wish I had done earlier is build my brand, even when I was in corporate. So when I started off, a lot of my career was spent at LinkedIn, and I very much tied my identity to, oh, I'm an editor at LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn is obviously such an amazing company. Like why wouldn't I want to be associated with that? But when I left LinkedIn, I was at a bit of a loss. Like, what do I talk about? Like, what do I post about? Like, what is my area of expertise? And so when I joined Prezi afterwards, I was very much more intentional about my brand and how I wanted others to see me. And I knew, yes, it was great to be associated with LinkedIn, great to be associated with Prezi, but who was I outside of that? And what was my brand outside of that? And so I sort of got pushed into solopreneurship because I got impacted by the tech layoffs at the end of 2022. But a lot of the reason that I was able to bounce back, have confidence to even do the thing, right, was because I had built this brand, because I had built a network and strong relationships. And that really was, I think, a key piece that people knew me and they knew my background, but they also knew, oh, Lorraine speaks on career development topics and video presence, and she talks about LinkedIn presence and all these different things. And therefore I was able to build a business off of that. And so it's been a wonderful 2 years. I'm now in year three, learning a lot, very different from corporate. I didn't know if this was going to be something I liked. You sort of just have to try, try and see, but so far so good.
No, I love that. And let's talk about that for a second, right? Because I believe that that's the advice that a lot of us are getting. Building your brand, whether you're in corporate America or whether you're running your own business and you have one employee, which is yourself, or if you have multiple employees. But how would you define a brand? What's a brand in your definition? Because there's so many different
Yeah.
versions and variations floating around.
I love that you're asking this question because a lot of people, I think they have a negative connotation when they hear the word brand, right, Quinn? So I think when people think of personal brand, they're like, oh, does that mean I'm like just marketing myself all the time? Like, am I selling something? But how I define personal brand, and I actually call it career brand because I feel like it's much clearer about what your brand is in service of, right? It's in service of your career. And I think it's a little bit more digestible for people. But essentially, how I define it is your reputation and what you want to be known for, and the value that you're promising, or the value that people are can expect to get when they work with you. And so when you think about it that way, you're like, oh, I already have a brand. Like everyone has a brand. It can either be something you are intentional about and are proactive about in defining, or if you don't think about it, you don't do anything with it, like you're just going to leave it to chance and other people are going to define your brand.
Oh, absolutely. It's so interesting because we have brands whether we like it or not, right? Like
Yeah.
you create one. Like, are you the person that's willing to speak up for yourself? Are you the person that's
Yeah.
always apologizing, especially as a
Yep.
woman? Like
Yep.
you have brands. So
Yes.
thank you for that definition. And I like that. I wrote that down. Career brand. And it's your reputation, right? In the
Yeah.
simplest form. It's like,
Yeah.
what can people expect from you? And hopefully that your brand online matches the brand when they meet you in person too. Because that's also
Exactly.
important.
Exactly. And they can really work in tandem together.
Mhm.
You mentioned my book coming out, Unforgettable Presence. I define or redefine what presence is because I realized presence is both how and where you are seen, especially in this day and age when we, like to your point, like some of us are virtual, some of us are in person, some of us are hybrid. And I remember people would say to me, like before having met me, like, oh, you have such a strong LinkedIn presence. And they were making an impression and forming an impression of me even before we had met. And then hopefully the in-person or the virtual, video call, whatever it is that comes after reinforces what they see. But you have the power to help influence how people perceive you on platforms like LinkedIn, even before having met you, which I think is a very, very exciting and very powerful thing.
Well, Lorraine, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I will say that I definitely, but it was a positive judgment. When I got the opportunity to know that I was going to be interviewing you, and I did a little bit of LinkedIn stalking,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
what I like to call it. And I was like, oh my goodness, she's a powerhouse. She has over 300,000 followers. Like on LinkedIn, that's very impressive, right?
yeah.
Whereas on another social media platform, it could seem vanity, right? But it was more of a positive. So I want to talk about presence for a little bit, right? From a couple of different angles. Can we talk about if you are a solopreneur, you're building that career brand, how important is your LinkedIn presence to grow and expand that?
So important. So I call LinkedIn our ultimate virtual office, our virtual water cooler, and our virtual landing page. And so you want to be seen at the office, right? Seen at the water cooler and have your landing page. And it's really transformed. So when I joined the company, we were creating content and bringing content to the platform. And it's been so wonderful to see how it's really transformed from not just a job site, but oh, actually a place I can grow a business or build my thought leadership or stay top of mind with my network. And so LinkedIn definitely needs to be a place to be and to be seen. And I think, like I said before, like LinkedIn presence can really create that reputation for you, create that impression even before someone has met you. And so I think, yeah, it's just like the ultimate place to be. I think there's a stat that I like to share often from the Rain Group, and they say 82% of buyers will look up a seller on LinkedIn before replying to prospecting efforts. Now, we're not all salespeople, but you sort of get the gist where it's like, oh, someone sends me a message like, who the heck are they? I'm going to click through, make an assessment and a judgment like, are they legitimate? Are they spam? And so, like, if your profile, and it goes the other way, like, you meet a CEO in person, they seem super impressive. You go to add them on LinkedIn, there's no profile picture, it's sparse. You're like, there's kind of a disconnect here. So, you want to build your presence and make sure it's consistent across all these different channels that we now have access to.
Oh, absolutely. And I can talk about this all day. And I see that you're going to be doing a workshop too for women in revenue coming up.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yes.
told you, I checked you out, Lorraine. I'm
I
like,
know. I was like, oh, is
I
that even
want to be
online?
her best friend.
I'm
I
impressed.
love
Yeah.
it. And you're right. I believe that your brand on LinkedIn really, really matters. And when I'm talking to different people, LinkedIn is number two. I'm even going to say 1.5. When I ask them, like, how did you find me as a speaker or how did you find me as an MC? 1.5. Like, number one is they saw me speak or saw me host an event. Or number two is I found you on LinkedIn. So I
Yeah.
always tell people that that's the place to go because that's where the buyers are. So I love that. And it is also a trick too for people who are like working on your website and you're trying to, kind of get your things together as you're building your brand. If it's not, you don't have the website yet, getyourname.com and then point it to LinkedIn. Like I've had people do that as well.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a lover of LinkedIn. I do. I love it. I love it. So
Yeah.
let's keep on this topic with presence, right? Because this is Women's History Month. We are talking about empowering her and your brand. One of the things I absolutely love is that, Hunter mentioned it too, that I believe that we both have like vocal presence, right? So can you talk about that a little bit? I know this is a little bit off script. However, as women, sometimes we are speaking up, but there's not inflection or conviction in our voices. So we can talk about how we show up, let's say on social media, or how we show up at a meeting, but what do you think about vocal presence, meaning that when you are showing up and you're building your brand, your ability to connect and command as a communicator? How does that affect your brand?
I think it's important to remember that having vocal presence doesn't mean that we have to be loud.
Hmm.
And there's still a way to be authentic to ourselves. Like you said, like my book is meant to be very tactical, very practical, because that's the way I learn as well. Like I'm like, just give me the scripts, like tell me the step by step. And you touched on it. Like our someone I interviewed for the book, Vin Jang, he's a communications expert. He calls our voices instruments. And so to think about it that way, like we don't want to be talking monotone. We don't want to be talking too high up. We also don't want to be talking too low down, right? Like sometimes people are like, "Oh, woman, maybe you seem less authoritative because you have a higher voice." You can still be authoritative. What you want to do is you want to add variety to your voice. You want to tap into the different tones. You want to use pauses effectively, right? Pausing is still, even though you're not actually speaking, pausing is still an aspect of powerful speaking and commanding authority and credibility. And so there's a lot of different things and ways that you can play with the way that you speak without feeling like, oh, I have to be super loud, I have to be super aggressive, and still command that attention. And I think one other thing I would add to that is, in the workplace, relationships are so important. So also having the foundation of a strong relationship with your coworkers, they know who you are, that connected to the variations in your voice and having that vocal presence is going to be, I think, like a winning combination. Like they know who you are, they know what you're about, and you know how to present your ideas and speak effectively.
I love that. And you're so right. It's not about being loud or super extroverted. I always say that you can like have command of the room. Your whisper can hold weight.
Yeah.
It's just about how you're playing around with vocal variety. I love that. Now, I love the fact that you are not only an author, you're an Amazon bestseller. I saw that as well, which is
You've done
amazing.
so much research. I love it.
Yes, Lorraine, I wanted to make sure I definitely did my research. I want to talk about this title, right? Because it gets me excited. So, there's one thing to have a presence, there's one thing to have a brand, but what does having unforgettable presence mean? Like, you could have chosen a million titles. Why unforgettable presence? And why is that something that we need to embody and to embrace as solopreneurs?
The title, oh, that took a long time to come up with. So you're the first person to actually ask me about it. So, I think with the title, like I wanted something about presence to be in there, and what I'm doing with the book is redefining presence. So it's not just executive presence and how we show up in a room, but it's about professional presence more holistically. And actually, my initial title for the book was something around the lines of like make an influential impression or like make a lasting impression. And I was like, okay, that's actually like the result that you want to get when you have presence. You want to leave an impression. And I think with Unforgettable, I was looking at the landscape of our world right now, and there's so many distractions. It's really hard to stand out. Again, like our workplaces are like some are remote, some are in person, some are hybrid. As speakers, like sometimes we're doing virtual, sometimes we're doing in person. There's just a lot happening. We have our phones, we have like the computer, just like so much happening. And so it can be hard to stand out and break through the noise. And so unforgettable to me, it's like you don't want to just make an impression and have the person forget about you. You want to be unforgettable. You want to still be in people's minds. You want to be that person who people think about. Again, like we talked about LinkedIn, like staying top of mind. You want to be remembered beyond just that single interaction.
Yeah, can you give us some tips, right? Because I feel like everyone's probably thinking, you know what? She's right. I don't know what makes me unforgettable. How can I lean into that? What is my unforgettable superpower, right? Like just
Yeah.
trying to like practical information. If somebody is struggling to try to figure out how do they become unforgettable in building their brand, what are some, tips or some techniques they can use to figure out or lean into what can make them more unforgettable without adding pressure to themselves?
I'm gonna give a non-sexy suggestion. So the first one is
Okay.
if you're in corporate right now to, or even I guess if you're off on your own, is to get better at leading meetings. And this is because so many meetings are so bad. And so I just feel like it's such low-hanging fruit that if you can learn how to lead a productive meeting, lead an engaging meeting, know how to get all voices incorporated, prepare people ahead of time, have the agenda, have a clear follow up afterwards so that the work actually gets done and you don't need to set up another meeting to talk about the ideas that came up in the original meeting. Like that, I think is like a really simple way to be unforgettable because we have such a negative impression and just like assumption when we go into a meeting like, oh, this is gonna suck. So if you can even just like small changes to make it even like 5% better, like I feel like that goes such a long way just because so many meetings are really bad. So that's one way, I think, like a fast way. And I have some frameworks in the book that can help with that.
Lorraine, you're singing my song and you're doing my dance, right? And the reason why I say that is because did you hear what she just said? Get better at leading meetings. The reason why I want to emphasize that is because, I'm a professional MC and moderator and facilitator. And honestly, I am still just trying to wrap my mind around how many corporations are sitting through knowingly boring meetings and they don't
Yeah.
want to hire a professional, right?
Yeah.
Or provide facilitation training to their senior executives. I'm like, boring board member Bob is not the right person to lead the meeting. We all know this. We all understand this, yet and still we give Bob the microphone, right? So I can appreciate that answer because a lot of times, when people do reach out and we're having conversations,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we're going to go internal. I'm like, but that hasn't been working for
Yeah.
you. That's why
Yeah.
you reached out to me.
Yeah.
So I just thank you. That was not staged, everyone. That was just a
Yeah.
perfect answer to getting better at leading me. I see your wheels turning. What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, also, like, I mean, that touches on another point. So I mentioned I have frameworks in the book. So one is the passive to active meeting framework, and the first step of that is warm up. And like in the book, I say meeting facilitators are the new workplace entertainers. So like, not planned. This is we're just on the same wavelength here, but it's so true. Like you have to bring that energy. You have to do something different than the status quo of the boring meeting, and you do something different, like you're gonna stand out immediately.
Oh my goodness. I remember when it was nothing but virtual and the world shut down and I like became a chat box champion. I was
Yeah,
just like making
yeah,
sure meetings and
yeah.
events were very I love that. I love, 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 love that. So we still have some conversation going on, but if people wanted to get the book right now, because I mean, you're mentioning chapters, we're talking about, marketplace entertainers, you know what I mean? Like people are like, okay, Quinn, where are you going to ask her where we can get the book? Because
Yeah.
again, they might be interested. Where can they go if they're interested in buying the book from you?
Of course. So you can buy the book at unforgettablepresencebook.com. And when you pre-order, you get you can upload your pre-order receipt. You get $500 plus worth of pre-order bonuses. You get some live webinars with me that I normally only offer to corporate clients. You get some worksheets, some just very tactical guides right from the start. So encourage everyone to pre-order if you're interested to take advantage of all of those.
Tell us one more time, where can we
Yes.
go to get it? One more time.
Unforgettablepresencebook.com. It's also linked out on my LinkedIn and just, on my website, so you can find it there as well.
Yes, yes. Make sure you take advantage of that. And I love that. So if you see my name coming up on the list, Lorraine, don't be surprised. You might see
Hey,
Quinn
I
Myers.
welcome it. Thank you.
I love that. Okay. So you have worked with some of the biggest brands that are out there. What are some of the lessons that you have taken from those experiences and applied it to really have your own successful business right now?
One I talked about earlier, the importance of building those relationships, and not just I was fortunate that both my major roles at LinkedIn and Prezi, that they were very external facing roles. So while I of course had internal collaboration, I had to work with a lot of business leaders, keynote speakers, subject matter experts, and so it really allowed me to expand my network. And so after LinkedIn, I had a big network. I was able to bring them over to Prezi to get them to use the tool. And then after leaving Prezi, my network has actually grown exponentially since running my own business. I feel like it's just it's amazing like how many people you can meet, and when you're not really restricted to just like the internal meetings, it's like and you're active on LinkedIn, like you see people's content, people reach out to you to do podcasts, just people like your comments, like whatever it is. I think the relationship part has been really key. And then what else would I say? I think the last thing I would say, and it's really sort of the introduction and the crux of the book, is that you really have to ask for you want and advocate for yourself. And so I talk
Mhm.
about in the introduction of the book, I was at LinkedIn for 6 years, worked on a lot of really high profile projects, really liked my coworkers. They liked me, like hard worker, right? Did great work. But I tried so hard and just could not figure out like how do I get promoted? How do I get to that next level? And that's also part of the premise of the title, like how do you go from overlooked and not feeling like you're seen to unforgettable? And so that is a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. So after leaving LinkedIn, there was a lot of self-reflection. I was like, why did I struggle so much? Okay, I was missing these things. Now going into Prezi, I'm going to be super proactive. I'm going to be really intentional about what I want. I'm going to talk to my manager, come up with a game plan, like all of this. And then now in my own business, same thing. Like you have to talk about yourself, and not in like an annoying bragging way, but you have to like let the world know what it is that you're up to. Otherwise, no one's going to know that you have a business, like what you do. There are some people, of course, who can succeed and they don't have like a website or anything like that. But I think that's like less common. And like you really need to put yourself out there and be willing to ask for what you want. Even talking about pre-ordering my book, like my goal is 600 pre-orders by April 22nd. And I had to put myself out on LinkedIn. I was like, hey, like this is my goal. Like, and I got right now I'm at about halfway there, a little over halfway there, which is great. But like I wouldn't have gotten that if I hadn't asked for it. And I know it's hard to sometimes put yourself out there, but you don't ask, you don't get. So
Yeah, I mean, it's about verbalizing your value and advocating for your own awesomeness. And if you're awesome and you don't advocate for it, then I'm not going to believe that you're
yeah,
awesome. So
yeah,
I love that. And I hope we can support you with getting to that goal of 600 April. So if you haven't already done so, don't forget, go to unforgettablepresencebook.com. So that way
perfect.
we can be a part of Lorraine's movement. So this question is very interesting, and I'm going to remix it just a little bit because
Sure.
I know that when you were at LinkedIn, you launched some new products like the LinkedIn newsletter and LinkedIn Daily Rundown, right? That was part of your genius, right? Um,
Yeah,
the question that I have for you is, what do you say to that entrepreneur or that solopreneur who has an idea that they haven't seen before, right? And they might be a little bit nervous about putting something new into the atmosphere because I haven't seen anything like this before. How does that solopreneur trust their gut, trust their intuition to move forward with a product or a service offering that is unique and new?
yeah, those products you mentioned earlier, yeah, I was able to help support from an editorial perspective, which was very cool because those are very major products now. What I would say from a solopreneur perspective is get out the MVP, the minimal viable
Mm,
product. I think it can be really easy, especially as like perfectionists, high achievers, ambitious people, all these things that describe me, to want to put out like the perfect thing and to know like 100% like, oh, like this is, I wanted to have the design to be perfect and I want the experience to be perfect and all this, but sometimes you just got to get it out there, test the
mm.
market, see what's resonating, and and then you'll know faster. You can iterate or you can pull back or you can move forward. So that's one thing I would say. The second thing is having a group of advisors or mentors or sponsors or just other peers in your network who you can ask. And I mentioned earlier, like my network has grown exponentially since being a solopreneur. I'm so lucky now that like a lot of them have become friends, and I can be like, hey, like, what do you think about this? Or they ask me what I think about something, or what would you charge for something like this? Having that support network is really helpful.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that advice because you're right. We get stuck in perfection avenue or
Yeah.
paralysis row, right? Like we were like, oh, I just want it to be right. And it's not about being right. It's about getting it out there and getting insight and feedback. So I love that. Now we got about 5 more minutes, which, oh my gosh, I could talk to you forever and ever and ever. There's a lot of things that you cover within your book. And I know that you're really, really wanting people to get this. But who is this really for? Like, there people write books all the time, and it's like, is this for me? If somebody's trying to figure out they're going to be a part of the 600, right? Like, who is the person that absolutely positively needs to have their hands, their heart, and their eyeballs on unforgettable presence?
Anyone who is mid-career, mid-level manager who's trying to make that jump to senior leader, that's going to be the ideal person for this book. Someone who's like ambitious, you work hard, you're in a similar situation as me, right? You're like working super hard, you're doing great work, but it's like, how come I'm not being seen as that leader? How come I cannot reach that next step? And that's one of the hardest jumps to make, especially in corporate America, from mid-level to senior leader. So I think that's the ideal reader. But of course, I am biased. I think everyone at every level will find something in the book for them. But you know, the ideal person is the one who's kind of struggling to make that jump, struggling to be seen.
I love it. Okay. And lastly, as a solopreneur, and for all the other solopreneurs that are out there, we talked about building a brand. We talked about your book, right? How can someone build a lasting brand? I remember growing up and I would hear things about people having like a one hit wonder, meaning they had one great song and that was it, or they had their 15 minutes of fame, meaning that they were hot at one point and then it wasn't lasting. When someone's building a brand, when they are working on being a solopreneur, what insight can you give for them to have a long lasting thriving brand versus a hot brand at the moment?
I share something called the EPIC career brand framework in my book. So EPIC stands for experiences, personality, identity, and community. And these are the four foundational blocks to start thinking about as you're building your brand. And I think to your question, while these are the great foundational blocks, a brand should be transforming over time and over the years because you're going to enter different eras of your life and different things are going to be important to you and you're going to want to try different things that make you perhaps emphasize different experiences, right? As part of that career brand framework. So it should be something that feels authentic, that feels genuine to you, but these things can and should change, I think, over time.
I love that. And I think you just freed a couple of people because I believe that when people start certain things, they feel stuck in it. You know,
Yeah,
I wrote a book, so this is all I can talk about, or
yeah,
I'm into fashion, or I'm into politics, or
yeah,
I'm a speaker on leadership development. I can't talk
yes,
about customer service now. So I
yes.
think that what Lorraine just did, everybody, is she gave you permission to transform. And I love that because brands should evolve and they should not be the same from when they started. So thank you for that. Now, if people are interested in connecting, I know that they can already go to unforgettablepresencebook.com and get on that list and pre-order. But if they're like, oh, I just want to be connected with her and learn more, I
Sure.
think I know where you're going to tell them to go. But I want to ask anyway, Lorraine, if they want to connect
Uh,
with you after this conversation,
yeah,
where can they connect with you?
definitely on LinkedIn, of course. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I will also share my newsletter, Career Bites, bite-sized tips to supercharge your career in 3 minutes or less. So you can go to lorrainekaylee.com/subscribe if you want more from me there. And then I have many LinkedIn learning courses out as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, we could have a whole conversation on LinkedIn learning courses. I mean, that's one of my goals too. I wish we had more time. We do not. However, Lorraine, we appreciate you. We thank you. What a lively conversation. Again, if you're not connected with her, head on over to her LinkedIn page. Not only can you learn more about her book, you can learn about her newsletter that she has. You can get bite-sized career advice in 3 minutes or less. But more importantly, if you want to have unforgettable presence in 2025 and beyond, Lorraine K. Lee is the woman who has a book with your name on it. So, with that being said, I want to thank Power to Fly for this awesome, amazing opportunity to host this discussion and conversation. And I'm going to hand the mic back over to the amazing Hunter.
Thank
That is
you.
how you host a conversation and run a conversation.
Amazing.
Come on. Come on, Quinn and Lorraine Lee. And now Dr. Alexandria White. These are three women that I adore. Follow them all. These are powerhouse people, my friends. Thank you so much, Quinn. Lorraine, always a delight to see you. Congrats on the book.